Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May Brahman protect us both, the teacher and the disciple. May he nourish us both. May we both work together with great energy. May our studies be vigorous and fruitful. May we not hate or criticize each other. Om. Peace, peace, peace. A happy Father's Day to all the fathers here. So now we have come to the 23rd talk on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Today we will be dealing with Sutras 40 to 45 of chapter 2. In the last 10 sutras of this second chapter, Patanjali had been describing the disciplines of Yama and Niyama, the first two limbs of the 8 limbs of the Ashtanga Yoga. After describing the 5 yamas, the don'ts, and the 5 niyamas, the do's, Patanjali described the specific results that we get by practicing these 10 virtues. In the last class, we dealt with the results we get by practicing the yamas, that is ahimsa, satyam, that's non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence, and non-receiving of gifts. Today we will deal with the results we obtain by practicing the niyamas, the do's, that is cleanliness, contentment, austerity or self-discipline, self-study, and surrender to God. So Sutra 40 says, Shauchat Swanga Jugupsa Parera Samsargaha. Shauchat Swanga Jugupsa Parera Asamsargaha. Internal and external cleanliness being established arises disgust for one's own body and non-intercourse with others. We all know very well that physical beauty is only skin deep. Underneath the skin, there's only a mass of flesh, blood, bone, and other secretions and waste, which create disgust in everybody, in our mind. But our identification with the body is so much that even though we know there's only filth underneath the skin, we do not feel disgust about our body. We hold on to the body as the most loved possession. With purity of the body comes sensitiveness. We become more sensitive and begin to see things in their true light. A person who has developed this cleanliness, he or she realizes that the body is only a mass of filth. Though how much you decorate outside, inside it's just all filth. So we develop disgust for the body. And once you feel disgust for your body, you don't feel attracted to other bodies. And avoiding physical contact with others become quite natural. Now, in this present pandemic, we are asked to avoid physical contact. But when you have this sense of cleanliness, real cleanliness,
we feel disgust for the body, and we naturally avoid contact with bodies of other people. And the mind gets more and more purified. Our identification with our body becomes less and less. So Swami Vivekananda says, when there is real purification of the body, external and internal, not just external purification is not enough, internal purification. So when there is real purification of the body, external and internal, there arises neglect of the body, and the idea of keeping it nice vanishes. Neglect of the body. That means you don't have to worry about the body. Usually we don't remember our hands or feet unless there is some aches and pains. We just take it for granted. We don't remember. After a long walk, suddenly you get aches on the thighs and calves. I know, remember, oh, you got calf muscles, thigh muscles, because you haven't used to having long walks. Otherwise, you don't remember them. So that is neglect of the body. You know that neglect means you ignore it. No, you don't have to worry about it. So for that, you have to keep the body in good condition. If you are get sick, then we cannot afford to neglect or ignore the body. So we have to keep the body free from illness so that we can ignore it. Because body is the only instrument we have got our spiritual progress. So you cannot afford to keep the body, make the body sick. Fall sick. If you fall sick, you won't be able to do spiritual practices. All the thought will be, the mind will be drawn to the body. So we have to keep the body fit. But that does not mean that you should go on pampering to the body, decorating it too much, spending too much time on the body. Keep it fit, that's it. Thus, with purity comes a stage when the yogi may not even remember how his body looks like. Forgot how the body looks like. There is one incident in the life of Swami Vivekananda. When he was staying in New York, one day in the house where he was staying, a small one, there's one hall. He was walking up and down the hall, and at the one end of the hall, there was a big mirror. That was the style of the houses in those days. And Miss Waldo, Ellen Waldo, who has written or transcribed Swamiji's talks and lectures, and especially in the classes in Thousand Island Parks, she used to do the housekeeping for Swamiji, like cooking his meals for some of the time. So she was sitting there. She had been attending the lectures of various teachers and always felt let down by the teachers. They didn't come up to her expectation. Now, Swamiji, she was finding, oh, this young monk is a good teacher. But as he was walking up and down, she noticed that as he reaches that mirror, the end of the hall, he will stop there, look at the mirror, look at his image, then walk back. Again, go and stand there and look at the image, his reflection. And she started worrying. Now the bubble I got is going to burst now. He is so fascinated by his own reflection. How much ego or self-importance, she was thinking. He did this a few times, and then suddenly Swamiji turned to her and said, Ellen, it's so strange. I look at my face in the mirror, and as I turn back, I forget how I look like. I forget how I look like, how my face looked like. I've forgotten. So I again go back and look. But the moment I turn back, I forget. That's the state. The body, how the body looks like, yogi cannot remember. So Swamiji continues, this thirst after body is the great bane of human life. So the first sign of the establishment of purity is that you do not care to think you are a body. It is only when purity comes that we get rid of the body idea. And when you forget your own body, when you get disgust for your body, how can you have jugupsa? Jugupsa means disgust. When you have disgust for your own body, how can you have attraction for other bodies? You realize that the other bodies are also full of filth, just like your own body. Then what else comes from this purification? Patanjali says in the next sutra, Sattva Shuddhi Saumanasya Aikagra Indriya Jaya Atmadarshana Yogyatwani. Sattva Shuddhi. There also arises purification of sattva. And then Saumanasya, cheerfulness of the mind, Aikagra, concentration, Indriya Jaya, conquest of the organs, Atma Darshana Yogyatwani, and fitness for realization of the self. Once you get purification of the mind and external and internal purification or purity, then you get sattva increases. Automatically the mind becomes cheerful, and mental purity leads to greater manifestation of sattva. You remember we have the three guna, sattva, rajas and tamas. Sattva increases. And spiritual progress is possible only when sattva gets the upper hand over rajas and tamas. Only sattva shows the way to self-realization or God-realization. Sri Ramakrishna's story of the three robbers, in the gospel it comes, he says, giving the story, a rich man was walking along, going somewhere. He had to go through a forest for the part of the journey, and he was attacked by three robbers. They took everything from him, and then one of them said, let's kill him. If we let him go, he may report us to the police, so let us kill him. The second robber said, why should we kill him? Let's bind him so that he won't escape. So they bound him to a tree and went away. After some time, the third robber came back and he said, you must be feeling really aches and pains because we had tied you so tightly. Let me untie you. Then he untied the man. Now I'll show you the way out. You go take this path and you walk a little more, then you reach your village. Showed the path. Then this man was very happy. You helped me so much. Please come with me to my home. He said, the third robber said, no, I can't come. I'm a robber. The police will catch me. Now, after giving this story, Sri Ramakrishna says, the first robber who said, let's kill him, it's tamas. Tamas destroys. The second one who said, let's bind him tight and bound him to the man to the tree, that is rajas. Rajas binds. Tamas destroys, rajas binds. Then comes the third robber, sattva. Sattva removes the bondage and shows the path to God realization. That's your goal. You go take this path, you go reach there. You will reach your goal. You reach your home. So sattva shows us the path, but sattva cannot take us there. When the man said, you come with me, he said, no, I'm a robber, I can't come. Sattva cannot take us to God realization or self-realization, but sattva can show us the path. So when sattva quality increases, then we can progress quickly on the path for God, towards God realization. So we have to reduce rajas and tamas in us as far as possible by increasing the sattva quality. And this purity is for calming the mind. The mind becomes calm only when pure thoughts are there. That is why Jesus said in the Beatitudes, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." When you have purity of heart, God realization becomes very easy. When the mind comes under the control or influence of sattva, then naturally it becomes cheerful. All the disturbing thoughts are removed from the mind becomes cheerful. Not just only cheerful, concentrated, aigagra, and senses come under control. With these three, the mind increase of sattva makes the mind cheerful, concentrated, and brings the sense organs under control, and that gives us the necessary quality for self-realization or God realization. So Swami Vivekananda says, by the practice of cleanliness, the sattva material prevails, and the mind becomes concentrated and cheerful. The first sign that you are becoming religious is that you are becoming cheerful. When a man is gloomy, that may be dyspepsia, but it's not religion. A pleasurable feeling is the nature of sattva. Everything is pleasurable to the sattvika man. And when this comes, know that you are progressing in yoga. Once Swami Vivekananda was joking and laughing with the devotees, and one of them asked, Swamiji, are you never serious? He said, yes, of course, when I have a stomach pain. Otherwise, why should? Always happy, cheerful. And we see Sri Ramakrishna's room in Dakshineshwar. If you look at the gospel, almost every second page you can see there's a big laughter. Sri Ramakrishna saying something and everybody laughing aloud. It's a mart of joy. Then M's description is like that. The youngsters are rolling on the ground with laughter. There is no anger or gloomy face there. Not just Sri Ramakrishna's disciples also, they have learned from Sri Ramakrishna how to be cheerful, how to make religious life happy and cheerful. Just one incident about that. After Sri Ramakrishna's passing away, the first few months of their stay in the Baranagar Mutt is given in the Gospel. And there is one entry describing the Shivaratri celebration, how the young monks celebrated Shivaratri. The whole day they fasted. The whole night they did worship of Shiva. And early morning they all went to the Ganges, had their bath. And then M says, Balaram, the devotee, had sent a basket of fruit and sweets for the young monks to have to break their fast. Now, fast and if worship is all over, they had finished their bath. Now it's time to break the fast. Narendra took a piece of sweet which was offered to in the worship, put it in his mouth, and stood imitating Sri Ramakrishna as though he is in ecstasy, lifting his hand with a sweet in his mouth, eyes not unblinking, and then another disciple got up to hold him up so that he won't fall down, imitating Sri Ramakrishna, and then everybody started laughing. After some time, after a minute or two, Narendra said, now I'm all right, as though he is coming down from Samadhi. And everybody started laughing. How making fun. Another time, one of the disciples said, oh, there's no point in living like this. Give me the knife. I'll kill myself because I haven't realized God. Then Narendra said, it's there, it's here, just stretch your hand. There is not so much of fun in spiritual life. And then Swamiji continues, what business have you with clouded faces? It's terrible. If you have a clouded face, do not go out that day. Shut yourself in your room. Don't go out if you have got a gloomy face. What right have you to carry this disease out into the world? Be cheerful. If you are spiritual, you have to be cheerful. With cheerfulness, you create an atmosphere around you where others feel happy in spite of their misery. Even if they have misery or suffering, when they come to your presence, they will feel happy. They feel relieved. All the suffering just fall from them. They feel like that. No one prefers the company of morose or complaining people. If a complaining person comes, if you know the person is always complaining, the moment you see the person, you start muttering, there comes. Now we'll start the gramophone again or the record of the complaints. Nobody likes that. Everybody loves cheerful people. So that cheerfulness comes from increase of sattva, and sattva comes from practicing purity or cleanliness. And cheerfulness, concentration, control of the senses, all these are the results of increase of sattva, and that makes us qualified for self-realization. Atma Darshana Yogyatvani, Patanjali says. It gives us the yogya or quality or qualification for self-realization. Now we come to the next virtue, sandosha, contentment. What do you gain by practicing contentment? Sandoshad anuttama sughalabha. From contentment comes superlative happiness. Not just happiness, superlative happiness from contentment. What do you mean by contentment? Be satisfied with your lot, whatever is it. See, animals behave on the instinct level. Nature controls them. But at human level, we don't want to give into the nature. We fight against nature. We live on the mind level. So mind is more important for us. The ordinary mind runs about all over the place, jumping from one thought to another. It's never satisfied within. Gita says, Atma Tripta, satisfied in the self. But our mind is not like that. Our mind is never satisfied with it. Within. So it's always in a state of disturbance, constant disturbance caused by all types of desires. When one particular desire is fulfilled, we think we are happy. That is just a temporary lull in the desire. That's all, lull in disturbance. When one desire is fulfilled, there is a lull in the disturbance of the mind, and we take that situation to be happiness. But soon it's pushed aside, and another latent desire comes to the surface of the mind, and again mind is back in the disturbed state. So to have real contentment, we have to eliminate our desires. Only when all the desires are removed can we have contentment, undisturbed state of mind. That is why Holy Mother asks us to pray for desirelessness. Pray for desirelessness. You go on praying for fulfillment of one desire or another desire, there are more desires. One after another desires will be coming up and disturbing your peace. So if you want contentment, if you want really peace or contentment, you have to be free from desires. So she is asking us to pray for desirelessness. But isn't it desireless state, a state of contentment, a neutral state, neither happy nor sad, like a what to say, dull state? Is it happy to? Is it nice to be without sorrow and happiness? How can it give superlative happiness? That is what Patanjali says. It gives, from contentment comes superlative happiness. How can that state give superlative happiness? When the mind is free from desires, the mind is undisturbed. Or chitta, there is no vrittis in the chitta. And then it's a state of samadhi actually. When there is no disturbance, the mind, the real nature, which is bliss, comes out, gets manifested. Ordinarily, our mind is so much disturbed that there is no chance for the bliss to manifest, which is to come out, to express itself. But when the mind is calm, free from disturbance, that bliss, which is our real nature, manifests. So, Valluva, the Tamil poet saint of the 5th century, says, where there is no desire, there is no sorrow. As desires ceases to flow, bliss starts to flow. When desires cease to flow, then what happens? Then bliss starts to flow. That's why from contentment comes superlative happiness. The next niyama that we are asked to practice is tapas, austerity or self-discipline. Kayendriya siddhir ashuddhi kshayat tapasaha. Kayendriya shuddhir ashuddhi kshayat tapasaha. The result of mortification or austerity is bringing powers to the organs and the body by destroying the impurity. Through practice of austerity or self-discipline, the impurities of the mind are removed and we are able to regulate our body and the senses. The lower nature is brought under our control. At present, because of there is impurity in the mind and lack of control over the body and the senses, we are not able to use our body as a perfect instrument for consciousness. But when through practice of austerity, the impurities are removed, then the mind and the senses, the body and the senses can be used as a perfect instrument for the manifestation of consciousness. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna speaks about 3 types of austerities: physical, vocal, and mental. Physical austerity, serving others. Service purifies the mind by removing our selfishness. If you want to do service, you have to be a little bit unselfish. If you are a completely selfish person, you will be looking after yourself only. You won't be serving others. Service to others means you have to be a little bit of unselfish. And that helps to mental purity. Again, a person who is serving others cannot be easily affected by little bit of physical hardship. And suffering or able to bear physical hardship makes the mind stronger. Thus, physical tapas helps in developing mental strength. We should be able to put up with a little bit of physical hardship. That is physical tapas. Service means that when you are doing something for other people, you had to maybe had to go through a little bit of physical hardship. But if you're ready for that, that makes you mentally strong, and that helps in developing mental strength. Next one is tapas of speech or verbal tapas. Speak kind, beneficial words. Sometimes we say that, oh, we will be speaking only truth. They say, don't speak harsh truth. It may be truth, but in the name of truth, don't speak harsh truth and hurt other people. If it is harsh truth which is going to hurt other people, just keep quiet. You don't have to speak. So, speak kind, beneficial words. That is verbal tapas. There are many people in the world who need a kind word. When we ask people to help others, they say, how can we? We don't have the means. Well, you can give a kind word to a person who is in trouble. That doesn't cost you any money. Just a kind word, a smile, a cheerful countenance to show that we care for the person. Sometimes a kind word can prevent a suicide. You never know. There are many people who feel that nobody cares for me, nobody wants me, nobody cares. More and more people are feeling in the present day, in the present age. So a kind word goes a long way to help people, and that is a great tapas. Because of our selfishness, we don't feel do that. Do this tapas. Say kind word. Especially if you see somebody in trouble, disturbed. Are you all right? Can I do anything for you? Just, or would you like to talk to me? Want open your problem? Open out your problem. A kind word goes a long way to help the person. And carelessly spoken words can cause a lot of harm. Once the word has come out of the mouth, you can never take it back. We may say, I just didn't think, I just spoke. I didn't mean that. Whatever you say, however much you apologize, the harm is caused. They say a wound caused by a weapon may heal, but the wound caused by a word won't heal. It's very hard. You spend years to build up relationship with people, but a harsh word, unthought word can destroy the relationship. So, so we have to practice austerity of speech. That's why it's so important, the speech. Then the third one is mental tapas, austerity of mind. Calmness of mind, no negative feelings. When others are happy, feel happy for them. And people feel happy and encouraged by seeing and being with a person who is free from negative feeling. If a person is full of negative feeling, we try to avoid that person. But if a person is full of positive feeling, happy feelings, we would like to be in that person's company. There's like the example of Swami Brahmananda. People used to, every day, wherever he was, people used to flock to him just to be in his company. Often, he may not be giving spiritual instruction. He may be just talking about what's happening in the society, or talking about plants, gardening, or just jokes, or even cooking. Whatever it is, people love to be in his company because he is full of joy, bliss. By practice of these disciplines, we gain depth. We receive, or we can detect subtle vibrations which ordinarily we are not able to detect or understand because our mind is all disturbed. When you practice these tapas, these three types of tapas, our mind and the senses and the mind becomes so subtle that we are able to detect the subtle vibration. So Swamiji says, the result of modification are seen immediately, sometimes by heightened powers of vision, hearing things at a distance, and so on, like clairvoyance or telepathy, levitation, all these psychic powers come. But we have to be very careful not to use them. They may come, but never use any of those powers because they are great obstacles on the spiritual path. Then we come to the next one, Swadhyaya, self-study. Swadhyayat Ishtadevata Samprayogaha. What you gain by practicing Swadhyaya, self-study? Patanjali says here, Swadhyayat Ishtadevata Samprayogaha. By the repetition of mantra comes the realization of the intended deity. Swadhyaya is usually translated as study of scriptures, of self-study, study of scriptures, sacred texts. By gaining wisdom, not just knowledge, by gaining wisdom through self-study, we realize the goal. What the goal we have in our mind. In Raja Yoga, the goal is realization of the self. But Sadhyaya also means repetition of a mantra. Here, Patanjali uses Sadhyaya in that sense, repetition of mantra. Now, mantra can be just one word or a few words, like the mantra Om Namah Shivaya, a few words, or it can be a prayer. The japa can be a mantra, a word, or a prayer like Gayatri mantra. People repeat. Let's just do the japa of Gayatri mantra, or the Jesus prayer that we read about in the Way of a Pilgrim, that book of the description about the life of a Russian pilgrim. They are all, japa can be done of any of this, can be either a mantra or prayer. Japa means constant repetition of the mantra or a prayer. So that leads to realization of the intended particular deity of whose mantra you are repeating. That's what Patanjali is saying. Now, mantra or japa can be done in three ways. You repeat the mantra or the prayer aloud. It's called Vachika Japa, repetition aloud. Everybody can hear it. The second one is Upamshu Japa, repeat silently, but with the lips moving. Only the person who is repeating can hear the words, the sound. Nobody else can hear it. So in a hushed voice, you repeat so that nobody else will hear, but lips are moving. Then the third one is Manasa Japa. It's repeated without movement of lips. It's repeated mentally. No sound comes out. These are the three types of japa, or three levels of japa, you can say. The lowest is Vachika, where we are repeating loudly. The prayer or the japa is done loudly. And the highest is Manasa Japa, which is done mentally without moving the lips. And that, why do you call it is the highest? The two reasons are there. One, you need greater concentration for that. If you are repeating mentally, if you are not concentrated, it will stop. loudly, loudly you're doing it, you don't need concentration, it will go automatically because you're repeating it loudly. But when you're doing it mentally, you have to need concentration. And so mental japa helps us to get concentration quickly. Another reason is spiritual practice is not for show. They say all religious the spiritual teachers tell us spiritual practice should be secret. Secret means not in front of other people, showing off to other people. It is a practice, it's a relation between yourself and your chosen deity. So it's not for show, so you don't have to show it to other people. As far as possible, let nobody know that you are doing it. That's why Manasa Japa, the mental repetition, is said to be highest. So you can see Jesus asking his disciples, when you enter your cell, close the door, and then pray to the Lord. And Sri Ramakrishna says about the superior devotee, the person is late in getting up, and people think, oh, maybe he is sleeping long. Actually, he is sitting inside the mosquito curtain and doing his meditation. Nobody knows. So spiritual practices should not be put on display. I remember once we went for a meeting in the city, in the Hyde Park, there was a prayer meeting. So we were saying the prayer, and there 2 or 3 people were sitting and meditating. For the whole world to see that they are meditating. What sort of meditation they do, I don't know, but it's their meditation. Spiritual practices should be done without any display. But this japa done with japa leads to meditation, and meditation leads to realization of the chosen deity. That's why Holy Mother says japat siddhi. You do japa, you will get realization. Japat siddhi. You realize that in the form of the particular form of God that you're praying to or doing the japa of, you will realize that. And in the Gita, Sri Krishna identifies himself with japa. He says, Ejnanam japa ejnosmi. So important is place is given to japa. Then we come to the last of the niyamas, Ishvara Pranidhana. What do you gain by Ishvara Pranidhana? The practice of Ishvara Pranidhana, that is surrender to God. Samadhi Siddhir Ishvara Pranidhanat. By sacrificing all to Ishvara comes Samadhi. By surrendering or sacrificing, by surrendering to God, you attain Samadhi. Swamiji explains it as by resignation to the Lord, Samadhi becomes perfect. What do you mean by surrendering to God? You give up our ego. When we say surrender, people say, why should I give up? Why should I surrender to somebody? Why should I bow down to God? Or why should I bow down to a teacher or holy person? Surrendering, we are surrendering our ego. It's very hard sometimes for people. But surrendering the ego, we gain depth. What is surrendering the ego? Not I, but thou. Not my will, but your will. Whatever you desire, let it be happen. That surrender comes after a long practice of spiritual disciplines. It doesn't come easily. We may say we are surrendering to God. We are whatever God wishes. It's God's will. Your will. It's not my will. But when something happens which is not to our liking, we get upset. That means we haven't surrendered. Surrender comes only after long practice of spiritual disciplines. Sri Ramakrishna and all the teachers say, you go on practicing spiritual disciplines, and after long practice you realize that by your own effort, you are not able to realize God. Then you surrender to God and wait for His grace to come. Surrender to God and also to our spiritual teacher. Through surrender, we gain, we evolve, and finally we gain illumination. We know to learn anything, first we have to accept that we don't know. If you go and think that I know, then we don't learn anything. We remain where we are. There are people who, as soon as you say something, I know, then they put the curtain there, the shutter there, they won't hear anything more because they think that they know. Such people don't learn anything. We should be ready to accept if something we don't know, we should be ready to accept it. We don't know, we need to learn about this. And only that way, that ego has to move a little. Only then we learn and we progress. Otherwise, we just stagnate there. This ego is a great obstacle. That's why Sri Ramakrishna says, he puts a question, when shall I realize God? And then he gives the answer, when I dies. I with an inverted commas. When that I, the little I, the ego, when that dies, only then we will realize God. That is why here in this sutra, Patanjali says, Ishvara pranidhanat samadhi. By surrendering to God, you attain samadhi. But when the ego is removed completely, then you attain self-realization, God realization. But these two sutras 44 and 45, talking about japa. Japa leads to realization of the deity, and surrender to God gives you samadhi, shows the path of devotion, how important the path of devotion is. Patanjali is showing that through devotion, the path of devotion, you can reach the highest samadhi without following the other angas of Ashtanga Yoga. You can reach self-realization or God realization by following the path of bhakti also, devotion also. But it is not just any ordinary bhakti, just praying to God a little won't give you God realization. Sri Ramakrishna says, intense yearning is needed. Once we can see in the beginning of the gospel, we can see Sri Ramakrishna talking to Yam, and Yam is asking, how can I realize God? How can one realize God? Sri Ramakrishna asks, can you weep for God? People shed jug full of tears for wife, children, husband. Can you weep for God? If you can weep for God, I want you. When will I see you? If you can weep for God, then we will have God realization, not before that. So this practice of yama and niyama is so important. That's why Patanjali has given so much importance, spending so many sutras on these two practices. First, explaining each of them, and then what you gain by practicing this. So, this practice of yama and niyama gives a firm foundation for spiritual life. And then you come to the next steps. So, yogic practices, when you start, first you have to have a firm foundation by practicing yama and niyama, and then go for the rest of the steps, asana, pranayama, all the others. Thank you.